and salutations, everyone. My name is Fire Mage, and welcome back to Rimworld Ascension Take 2, Episode 73. If you enjoy this episode, please remember to like and subscribe, and as always, mod list is down in the description. And with that, let's get on to the episode. Alright, well, picking up from where we left off last time, what are my plans for today? Well, as has been the goal for the last couple episodes, we will, of course, be continuing work on our vehicle project, but I also think today we are going to be focusing on, of course, finishing up the wall, and also working on the Gene Lab, as those are some projects that I think I can knock off the list pretty quickly. Starting off with the wall, since they finished up this section over here, let's go ahead and replace the last of the external wall with the armored rebar concrete. There we go, and that is all of the wall that needs to be replaced. Now, in line with replacing that section of the wall, we also need to determine what exactly it is we're doing over here. And I think the simplest solution is to simply take the wall and bring it down like so, follow along here, and then when we get to right here, something like that. So we'll have a little bit more space for the critters, and this section is more easy to lock down. Of course, that also means we will need to deconstruct this section of the wall right here. And once that is done, we can check that off the list. And there we go. Archaeogenetics are researched, and I still don't know what that actually does, other than give us the ability to use those archaeogenetic thingies we have seen around when we are trading. So we're gonna have to see what those do now that we have that researched. Next up, we will research the gun link, which should increase our shooting accuracy if we choose to use it, although it does replace the helmet, so that might not be the best to give to our frontline troops. Now, there is a new problem I have found, and I'm not sure if it's an actual issue or not, but if we click on Baskling here, Baskling is hungry and not getting fed. Now, it does say that it is auto-loading nutrition, but I'm not sure if anyone is actually doing that. So, in order to solve that little conundrum, we are going to quickly throw together a very basic nutrient paste system. Now, it won't be anything fancy because it is being done kind of last minute, but it should be relatively easy to set up. And we'll go ahead and set it up on this side of the hospital. All we need to do is build a nutrient grinder and a nutrient vat. Those two things together should, in theory, allow us to make nutrient paste, if this works the way I think it does. Then, of course, we put in a concrete auto door since we're upgrading to those, and just because I like to have floors, a basic concrete floor. Just like that, and hopefully our constructors will get to that soon enough. Ah, and a bulk goods trader from the Pact of Verbonlia. It is nice to see them trying to make their way to us to trade more often now. Makes me think we might have a good relationship going once again. Let's go ahead and do some trading. Hopefully they have more cloth. Alright, let's see what this trader has for us. First off, they have the components, and they have cloth. Very nice. They also are willing to buy all of our leathers, as per usual. Can never go wrong there. they are also willing to buy quite a few of the things that we have lying around. Well, let's sell them some of our less than ideal clothes. And you know what? Since we're not really using the rice and we aren't growing it, let's go ahead and sell that off as well, just to make a little bit more space. And I think that is going to be the trade deal. So we will be losing 244 silver, but gaining cloth and components, which are both things that we really need, so I consider that to be a win. Now, while we could use this cloth here in order to make more houses, we will not, because we actually need that cloth in order to build all of our new armor. And considering right now our infantry kits are kind of empty, I think we're going to focus on the armor production first and foremost. Speaking of which, as you can see, the nutrient paste system is now online and operational. I also decided to turn it into a freezer, because although fungus does not rot very quickly, I would still rather make sure that it doesn't rot at all, if possible. And that should mean that this will start slowly being filled and transferring to these as needed. Or at least that's what I would say if it was actually connected, because I forgot to build a single pipe right there. Of course I did. Well, that shouldn't be too terribly difficult to get built. One of our robots will probably do that soon enough. Well, it would seem that we have completely exhausted our meat reserves. That is not very good. Luckily, we can simply make some simple meals, which should be enough to keep us from starving, at least for now. And we will simply make them out of fungus, as we have quite a bit of the stuff. And we'll do until 30. And we'll go ahead and also, while we're over here, suspend the making of grilled meals. Luckily, our mushroom farm is quite good at doing its job for the most part, so we shouldn't be too worried about starving to death, at least for now. Maybe. In fact, actually, I am still concerned about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to build some of these irrigation sprinklers to hopefully boost our farm efficiency. We will build one here, and we will build one here. And then up here, we will build one here and one here. Then all we have to do is figure out how to plumb them up, which shouldn't be too hard. That should hopefully increase the growth speed of our mushrooms, if it works the way I think it does. Well, after waiting for the sprinkler system to activate, it has turned my rich soil, which already gives a 140% fertility rating, is now at 252. That is ridiculous. Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that our Nutrifungus is going to be growing at a pretty ludicrous speed. Although it does look like the fertility value does go down over time, which makes sense. But still, 252, that is insane. So that means we're going to be getting so many more crops. The only downside is that each one of those takes 1,000 liters of water a day, but we also pump out about 6,000 a day, so not too concerned. We should be able to keep up with that quite easily, and if we need more, we can always just build more water pumps. And there it is. All of our walls have been upgraded, which means we can now check that off the list. Now, I did have to also add in a little concrete wall down here in order to make sure that this pen stays roughly the same size, and our critters don't eat our corn, which they already are because they snuck out while we were building that. But now the walls are done, and we are once again safe. And that means it is time for our next project. And our next project is going to be the Gene Laboratory, because I think that'll be some good fun. Now, I'm not entirely sure how big this thing is going to be, because we do need quite a few bits. So I think the first thing we're going to do is actually put down all the pieces that we will need, just so that I can see roughly how big this stuff is going to be. Alright, so looking at that, we shouldn't need anything too big and fancy. And I feel like we probably shouldn't put it too close to the front line, so we'll squeeze it in back here, I think. So we will make this into a path, or maybe right here. Either way could work. And we will simply start off by making a little square, like so, with a door. Then from there, let's put some gene banks along this wall here. We'll put the gene assembler right here, with the gene processor going here, and the gene extractor here. Then we'll bring this wall in slightly, give it a little bit of shape, like so. And I think that'll work quite nicely. And since this is technically a room for doing the medical sciences, we shall give it sterilized tiles. Is there any real point to doing that? Not really, but it will look nice. And in that same vein, we will also be putting in a lamp right here. And that'll be our little gene lab. Again, nothing too fancy, but it should work for our purposes. Well, it would appear that the long night is over, and I somehow missed the event, although it did happen on this day of the year, so I didn't miss it by much, but I did miss it. But that means that the sun has finally returned, which we are immediately going to take advantage of by deconstructing those sun lamps and opening up our fungus. It has been so long since we've seen the sun. I think we need to take advantage of it as soon as possible. Now, that does mean we're going to have to swap from growing mushrooms to something else. And I think we're going to start off with a bunch of rice, at least in this field, because we are out of food. Again, as per usual. And now that the sun has returned, animals should also start returning soon, hopefully, as well as trees, which would be very nice. Now, luckily, our constructors are going to immediately get to work on removing the roof zones up here. And we'll also go ahead and rip out those posts as they are no longer needed. But our farming squad should hopefully be able to get to work on the fields soon enough. In fact, I'm going to simply force them to go work on that. And there we go. Our little robo builders have finished up the gene laboratory, which means we can now check that off the list. Now, I still have no idea how any of this works, so that is certainly something, but I'm sure we will figure it out. Interesting. So I believe we need to start with this if we want to get genes from a person. Then we can mix them in the gene assembler. Is that what am I understanding this correctly? I think I am. Well, we will certainly be tinkering with that in the future. But for now, I think we will be focusing more so on getting our crops up and running. And there we go. Our fields have been planted, which gives us a nice-sized cornfield and rice field. Although we'll probably swap them around at a later on, probably when the winter hits, since this is larger than the cornfield. And in the time it took for us to plant the cornfield, our rice is already almost grown. It grows insanely fast. Now, let's go ahead and set up another grow zone. Specifically, actually, we will be expanding this one. The cotton field here will need to get torn down, of course, but this one can simply be expanded, since this is quite the rich soil deposit over here. Now, we're going to expand it to fit the whole area here, in order to achieve maximum effectiveness, just like so. And what we will be turning this field into, since it is so big, is our cocoa farm for getting the chocolate, which will hopefully help stabilize the mood of the colony. Now, we will also set up another field over here, although this section will probably be split into multiple fields. We will start off by making a small field right here, just like so. And this will be our cotton field, so that we can start working on that, and we'll let our farmers go ahead and start planting that. And in the meantime, we have now finished researching gun links. Again, probably won't use them unless we are using highly specialized troops like snipers, but we have the option to mess around with that now. And I think next up, we will do industrial roasting, which will let us make industrial-sized amounts of coffee. Probably what we'll turn the rest of this field into, mainly so that we can sell it. Just like our large amounts of whiskey, that will give us large amounts of money. Probably. But on that note, I think I'm going to leave this episode off here. We have made a lot of progress today. We have a new gene lab, our walls are upgraded, and it is no longer the long night. We are finally back to having the sun and all the benefits that come with that, mainly in the sense that we can now actually farm a decent amount of food. Speaking of the farms, though, we now know that the irrigation system is very powerful, turning rich soil into over 250% fertility rating, which is insane, and means that our rice grows insanely fast. But with all that said and done, though, I will see you all in the next episode.